So obviously this is like, it's a Christian podcast, but so the only rule is no swearing.
Oh my God.
And then
Just kidding. Is it this way or is it from the side? It's
yeah.
Okay.
I always talk into it like
cool.
this.
All right, perfect. Yeah.
And then it's more of just like free conversation. And then if it is going too long for whatever reason, you have to go. You can just be like, oh man, I gotta go.
Absolutely. I probably have anywhere between 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah, that's perfect.
So.
And then if it does go past that,
Perfect.
just say, hey man, I actually have to go.
Yeah.
And then we can end it. So.
Well, the only thing is, as bad as it sounds, yes, I'm committed to my family, right? But Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, I've been committed to streaming.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
And so just trying to stay consistent with schedule like that.
I get it. Are you doing Twitch?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So I've been doing that for a little bit. It'll be my 4th stream.
Is it paying yet?
No, but one day I'm believing for it for sure. But I think just wanting to fall in love with the process before I start thinking about, because I think that's an end game. But I would be, dude, if it's coming out of, like, for instance, you doing this, okay?
Right.
You're doing this because 1, you're curious. 2, you enjoy it. 3, you're learning and you're growing in it.
Yeah.
Right. And it's something like you said earlier of like, sometimes you don't realize how much work it takes.
Yeah.
But how much you love and enjoy it though.
Mm-hmm.
Like, dude, I'll do it. I know it's work at first, but man, I'll do it easy, you know? And so getting this whole thing figured out, it's like, man, it's a lot of work. I had to put more stuff into it than I thought I would have to. But the end game, as much as I would enjoy and like to say, yes, money's going to be nice. Dude, I really started from a place of like, I love my faith. I love my family. I love my wife, my kids, and I love the game. I'm just gonna put them all in one place. You know? And so that streaming, that specifically is, I love games, but a faith, I think, is something that it just comes out of us, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't have to sit there and say, hey, I'm a Christian streamer, right? No. It just like, NF said it this way, and he said, you don't see a plumber going around saying, I'm a Christian plumber. I'm a plumber who's a Christian.
Right.
That stuff's just going to flow out of you. And so this whole streaming thing is something I'm looking forward to. So just growing it.
Yeah. I've noticed that too with doing this, just like falling in love with the process, because when I first did it, I just wanted to get views and get paid, make money. I was like, this is what my goal is.
Yeah.
It wasn't happening.
Yeah.
And then after a while, I was just like, you know what? Then I would upload a video and I would just stop checking the views. And I was like, it was actually really fun to sit down and talk with someone that I normally don't talk with. Yeah. Sometimes I have friends on here and sometimes it's people that I don't really know. It's really uncomfortable.
Yeah. Come on. That's awesome.
But it's like you said, growing in it.
Yeah. That's huge. Come on.
So since this is your first time.
Are we starting now? Or is it already live or?
Yeah, it's already live.
Oh, perfect. Awesome.
It's been going, but I'm going to leave most of that in. I'll probably cut like the very beginning when we were just figuring stuff out. But since it's your first time on here,
come on.
Let people know who you are and what you do. We got a little bit about the Twitch, but there's more to Ricky. So what is that?
So, hey, my name is Ricky. I am a husband, a father. I work as a pastor at Res Life Church there in Granville. Right, I think it's Granville, Wyoming, whatever area it is. But I've been doing that since 2018. I've been an official pastor, I guess you could say, since I think, dude, like 2021, maybe. Yeah, so it's going on 3 years. Wow. But yeah, that's my vocation. Yeah. But more than anything, I think a conversation that I have with people quite often is, the topic of ministry and working in ministry. And the reality is that you are in ministry no matter what. There comes to a point where man recognizes that and they will give you financial stability, right? And what awkward way of saying job, right? But that's something that I had the opportunity to do. I was working actually at a dealership at a body shop, and my wife and I were we just got married in 2017. It was March, and towards the end of 2017, we were pushing about 9 months or maybe 10. So the conversation was about November. Yeah, so it could have been like 7 actually. Math, I'm supposed to be good at it, but anyways. I said I'm supposed to be good at it. It's hinting that I'm Asian. Anyway, sorry.
Yes, for the audio listeners.
Yeah, just so. But yeah, right. Sorry if that was me. But towards the end of November, she said, "Babe, I really want to start a family," and I'm like, I never want to be the guy that denied my wife anything, right? I mean, obviously, if there's something like super outlandish,
right,
babe,
within reason,
right?
Yep.
But that was one thing I never wanted to say. No, I'm not ready, And even though that was 100% true, I said, all right, let's start praying for either promotion where I'm currently at, or provision for something completely different, and really just started trusting in the Lord. We prayed for about a month and a half or so. So yeah, it had to be October actually. First week-ish of December. At this point, I was a part of the ensemble team at church there during worship, and one of the pastors came up to me and said, "Hey, I've been thinking about you, praying and whatnot, and you kept coming up. Let's have a meeting. Let's have lunch." And I'm like, "Okay, sure." And this again, I was still working at that job, and he came up and said, "Hey," he said, "There's a position that opened up at church here, and I think you'd be great at it. It's the director of first impressions, so guest service ministry and whatnot." He said, "Think about it. You've been coming up on my mind." And it's funny because as he said that, I'm like thinking to myself, we've been praying for like the last month and a half for something completely different, or promotion again, where I was at. And that unfolded. I remember talking to my wife that day coming home from church, and I told her, "Babe, you would not like guess what happened today." And so I told her about it. I'm like, and she's excited about it too. And for people to know, at Borgman Forge was where I was working at. I loved it, man. I was the body shop estimator there. I didn't do anything with cars, so don't mistake that. I mean, the biggest thing I did was you brought your car in, it was broken or whatever needed to be fixed. I'd get you a quote, and you'd give it to your insurance. And so that was my big thing. But man, relationally, I love people. I love to connect with people, and the job was all right, but more than the job was the people there. And I just, at that point, I felt like I was getting a good rhythm of connecting with people, the salesman, the owner, just all of it. I really enjoyed that place. And so it made it hard to really want to leave that. And then literally that Monday, after I had that conversation with Pastor Tom Smith, literally my manager goes, "Hey, man, I know you've been grinding, and I know that you've been working hard. I just want to let you know, I think that if you continue to do this, I think you'll be really, really good at it, and I think that you'll be very successful in this area. I've been talking to the owner about getting you promotion and whatnot, and just waiting to see what comes of that. But I just want you to know that I've been seeing and witnessing just how awesome you've been doing." And I'm like, "Yeah, dude.
Maybe this happened a couple weeks earlier."
Yeah. But dude, I feel like that always happens in life.
Yeah,
it like
does.
There's never like a clear, okay, this is the only one, because as soon as that happens, there's another one that opens up a door, right? Then it looks good. But I really, again, knowing that I enjoy the people I worked with, and then knowing that there's this opportunity for me to be a part of this, it was just like, and I knew.
Do you think that you would have been in the wrong if you would have taken the promotion from the other job?
I think the kingdom of God is green until it's red, right? And I think if that wasn't supposed to happen, then God would have told me one way or another.
Yeah.
But I also think that we as believers don't realize how much favor we truly have.
Yeah, because I think sometimes it's like, I don't know which one to choose. Like, which one does God want me to choose? And it's like, sometimes we get options.
Yeah.
And that's not, neither one is right or wrong. It's just you pick whichever one you would think suits you best.
Yeah, I think we are really limiting, or we don't give God enough credit when we think if I pick this, the Lord's going to be like, "Oh, no, no, it was right there. Clearly, I had him talk to you first. Why didn't you? What? Like, why are you thinking so hard?" Like, I don't think God's like that at all whatsoever. I think, man, God's going to bless you. I truly believe that He's going to be with you, right? wherever you go.
Yeah.
Obviously there's some places you shouldn't go, and that's not what we're referring to.
Right.
We're referring to options like a new job or a promotion, right? There are places that you shouldn't go that are super clear scripturally. Okay. That's not what we're talking about. I look at the camera because I'm like, some people are like, oh, sweet, so I'll do this, right? But yeah, man, I think that if we choose to do it and do it unto the Lord, or we worship him unto the Lord in everything we do, I think he's faithful. And he's faithful to bless us, whether we abound here in a company like Borgman Ford or here at a church that I go to and call home, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, man. And then I felt like I was supposed to pick the church. And so I did, and I ran with it. And I told him a couple days later, I said, hey, man, I just want you to know that I appreciate everything that you said. Something came up at my church where, one of the pastors presented something to me, and I've been thinking about it. And I didn't, wisdom, right? I didn't do it until I had the job.
Right.
Right. Like, don't do, hey, there's a small opportunity that I might go and let people know, right? No. I waited until I knew for sure, and I did. And January 2nd of 2018 was when I started my job at Res. And it was like 2 days later that my wife told me she was pregnant. And so it was just really cool timing that God did what he did, So,
yeah. Was there any fear when you found that out?
That she was pregnant?
100% going to be a dad, or was it all joy?
I think it was probably like 85, if not 90% joy.
Yeah.
And 10% fear.
Yeah.
Because of my past, my dad, he left me and my two other siblings. I was about 6 years old. And so my brother had to have been 9. And then my sister was about 3. And he was out of the picture and at an early age in our lives just because of my mom and his messy divorce and altercations and whatnot. And so growing up the way that I did, lack of a father, I felt super inadequate to be a dad. I'm like, how am I supposed to be a dad when I didn't get fathered myself? Right? Because I feel like it's a huge part of the man's responsibility to instill fathering into their children,
Yep.
And so I didn't have that growing up, and I just felt like super out of place, ill-equipped, not the guy. And man, God just provided people in my life to really fill that void.
Yeah.
Yes, I was still, okay. Truthfully, it was up until the point where I was sitting in the hospital with my son in my arms that I felt, I got it. That it wasn't until then that I felt the inadequacy leave. Because, dude, it was just one of the coolest stories ever. Not that I've heard God audibly, right? But there was a moment where I'm sitting in the hospital and my son, sorry, there's like something in my eye. Excuse me. But I'm sitting in the hospital holding my son, and all of a sudden the scripture comes to mind in Matthew where Jesus gets baptized in Matthew 3. And it says, the Holy Spirit descends like a dove and the heavens open up and you hear God's voice, right? You hear a booming voice saying, this is my son whom I'm well pleased. And in that moment, God was like, people interpret that quite often as this, like, what's his name, who played Darth Vader?
James Earl Jones.
Him. They kind of hear that in this like deep, right? Or Mufasa voice.
The same guy.
Right? Yeah, exactly. They interpret as that. But I just, in that moment, I heard this like still voice of like, man, he said, Rick, when I looked at Jesus coming out of the water, I said, this is my boy. And I'm so pleased with him. I'm so happy that my boy's there. And he's doing exactly what I've called him to do. And it made me realize that not that the boom voice or the epic noise was there, but the meaning behind it is what he told me. And he said, the way that you feel about your son before you is exactly the way that I felt about Jesus. And it's exactly how I feel about you. And that for me was just like a confidence changer, dude. I looked at my son and I was like, man, you don't have to do a single darn thing to make daddy love you so much, anymore. And so, and yeah, man, I like in that feeling of inadequateness, whatever you want to call it. I'd be lying if I said it went away. But it just, in that moment, I was like, you know what? I can't do this. Mm-hmm. I'm not as disqualified as I thought I was.
Right.
So.
And then, so obviously there's that joy that happens when he's first born.
Yeah.
While raising him and your other children too.
Yep.
Has there ever been any question of like, am I doing anything wrong? Or
dude, all the time, dude, all the time. It's funny. Part of me was like, I feel like this is going to come up, you know, as we were talking about this. Man, I would be lying if I told you that I 100% got it right all the time.
Yeah.
And, man, there's so many moments in my life where in the most recent years, right, the past 5-6 years of parenting, that I'm like, God, like, I know I'm supposed to be a parent. Like, the question now isn't, am I going to be a good father?
Right.
I think the question is like, God, how can I not mess up today? Right.
Yep.
Or how can I love on them better today? Because, man, kids have dude, there's just so many opportunities for them to drive you nuts. Good ways and bad, man. Ample opportunities for my sons to hit the right buttons, especially in the season of their life as they're getting older, exploring their options, looking where the boundary line is, and then potentially putting one foot over the boundary line and making sure that we see them looking at them, like see us looking at them.
That's around like what, 6 or 7?
So my oldest is going to be 6 this year in September. My second born just turned 4 in March, but he's like the same size as his 6-year-old brother.
Yeah.
Dude's massive. And then Ruben is my third. He is going to be 3 in October. And Scout, my daughter, she just turned 1 in May. So quite a bunch there. But dude, they just feed off of each other. Especially my boys. My boys right now, they're in the stage where they feel like they just have to constantly jump off like ledges and just have to wrestle. And
yep.
My third, Ruben, he just started discovering what it's like to scream like a girl.
That's always fun.
Dude.
He's the one that's, you said 4?
He's gonna be 3.
Okay, so he's Zane, the youngest boy.
Yep, and Zane's my second born. So I have Jedediah, Zane, and Ruben, and then Scout. Love them, great kiddos, but man, they let me say it this way: they're being exactly their age,
right?
You know, right. Something that Caleb Crocker and I talk about quite often is learning in this season of my life and this season, really just all the time, is responding with chaos while chaos is already being ensued. If you think about it, like oftentimes when we're parenting our children, right, you respond and you talk to them in a manner that literally meets them where they are. And we can't do that as people, right? Whether you're a teacher, whether you're a parent, whether you're counseling kids, whatever it is, when we meet them at their level, it just gets more chaotic, right? And so a tendency that I lean to, and I try not to, is I can get very vocal and loud. So if my kids, if they're doing something and it gets to a point where I'm like, all right, I've told you like 5 times, that's it. Okay. And then I'll go, you know, at the top, I'm like, there was one time, let me tell you about an experience that I had. We just moved into our new house. So we've been there about almost 3 years now. And as we're there in the living room, there's some couch cushions stacked up in the corner. And like looking back at it now, as a kid, you look at that and you're like, dude, I'm going to climb the heck out of that thing right now. And I should have expected it completely, right?
Yeah.
And I was already kind of at my wit's end at this point with the kids. And I'm like, you guys, do not climb up there. You're going to fall. I don't want you to fall. Da, 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 da. I walk out of the room and all I hear is, ah! And I go in there and my second born, Zane, is like losing it because he fell and he hit his elbow or something like that. And I was just so livid. And I was like, that's what you get. Like, I was like, I told you not to do it, blah, blah, blah. All of a sudden, I hear, because our windows open up in our living room, right where all this stuff is going on. It's opened up halfway or the fullest amount that this window could be open. And I just hear an Amazon package get dropped. And I look out the window and there's the truck there. And as the truck's just there, I see the guy walking back to his truck, and I see a neighbor walking their dog, looking into my house, wide open house, like window. We didn't have blinds or like that. And it's like they were looking at like, what the heck's going on in this house right now? And I felt so naked, so like exposed, because I'm like, the world knows how I parent, right? And I just felt so embarrassed, dude. I literally just dude, I just shut down. Like I didn't even move. I just sat there. I was like 15, 20 minutes because I was mad at myself for overreacting. I was mad at myself for yelling at him, but I was mad that I right there before the world, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, that house over there, that house, don't go down there. Don't even go near that house. They're unhinged over there. It's just chaos, right? All that just going back to parenting and just like trying to teach, trying to coach, and really just chaos. Meeting chaos with chaos is one of the worst things that we can do when we're leading anybody. So whether you're a leader of a department at work, you're leading volunteers, you're leading children, you're a counselor leading students, or a teacher leading students, whatever it is, or you're parenting, right? Responding chaos with chaos is never the answer. And so I found myself have been more intentional about not getting there with them right away. My intentions, or at least what I've been trying to do more often, is when I feel the pressure to get loud and revert to the spanking spoon or whatever it is, I have to take a breath and go, okay, this dude is overreacting right now. And I can choose either to meet him there, or I can be, and this is not easy. And I'm not saying that we get this 100% dialed in all the time. Okay. Right. I can sit there and embrace him, right? And hug him, which is the last thing. When my kid's going nuts and he's screaming like a freaking banshee, the last thing I want to do is hug him. And I remember there was one time where we were in their room, and it was like bedtime, and my youngest, Ruben, my youngest boy, he just screams at the top of his lungs, bloody murder. And I get so mad, and I grab him, and I was about to let him have it. And the Lord said, stop. He needs you to hug him. Dude, in that moment, I picked him up, and I hugged him so hard, bro. And I just started weeping uncontrollably. And he starts hugging onto me tight. His arms are wrapped around my neck.
Yeah.
Because what he didn't need in that moment, which I wanted to give him, wasn't yelling. But he needed in that moment was his father to love him, even in the midst of chaos. If I would have responded with yelling, dude, it would have just gotten worse.
Yeah.
But my job as a father, it's not perfect, but it's to love him through that. Love him in those moments. And I'm not saying that there isn't a time, dude, there isn't a time to yell, right? But man, dude, most of the time when that stuff's going on, they don't need that. What they really need is for you to embrace them. And that's usually the last thing you want to do in that moment, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
With that, because I agree, I think that being calm is the best way, even when you have to discipline. But how do you go about being calm and bringing out that discipline on kids?
Yeah, man, it's a proactive thing. It's you doing that is not, I'm going to decide to do that in the moment, because that never happens in the moment.
Yep.
You really have to come up with that strategy ahead of time, right? Okay, I know that if I do this, and it's been something that I've been chewing on, meditating on, I don't need to go and meet him there. Okay, if it's been something that I've constantly told myself, don't meet him there, don't meet him there, don't meet him there. It happens, what am I going to do? Hopefully by now, I'm not going to meet him there, right? And so you have to be proactive in deciding ahead of time when stuff like this hits the fan, right?
Yep.
What I need to do is respond with what I've prepared. I'm not going to freak out. I'm not going to yell. There are times where you have to, like, there's moments where, like, if it's a safety thing, if it's something that's going to cause them harm, I have to do what I can in that moment. If I'm far away and my son's running towards the road, I'll be yelling across that field, right? Or wherever it is that I am. But if there's a time where I'm sitting there face to face with him and he's doing something that I'm not okay with, there's a moment, an opportunity there that I can meet him at his level physically, lower myself and meet him face to face, eye to eye, level to level, and say, dude, this isn't the way to do this.
Yeah.
And in their mind, they're like, Dad's not domineering me. What Dad's trying to do is actually understand me.
Yeah.
And I'm not perfect at it, but I would say the answer to what you just asked about how do you prepare or what do you do, it's just being intentional about planning that ahead of time. And that's just, dude, that's just relationally with anybody, right? And not everybody's a parent, right? So I want to take this to the next step of just like, if there's a conversation that you're going to have, or you are dealing with someone or a coworker, whoever it is, a friend, right? Don't walk into that conversation guns blazing, right? Mm-hmm. So I started blasting, right? Like, is that Danny DeVito?
Yeah.
That's not what you need to do.
So.
What you need to do is, right, like come up with a game plan. Okay, there's a book that I've read recently, or I say recently, it's probably 3, 4, maybe 5 months ago. But it's, man, it was something crucial conversations. But it was teaching you to have those hard conversations. People do not want to have hard conversations. As much as we can, we try to shy away from them. When in all reality, we need to have those conversations.
Even if they're awkward and uncomfortable.
But man, there's times where I've just tried to lean into them as much as I can. If I know that there's a potential awkward conversation that I need to have, I'm going to have it. And am I perfect at them? Absolutely not. There's definitely been times where I've positioned myself in them and it just didn't go the way that I planned. But if we never face them, we'll never grow, right?
Right. And
the more you have, the more you develop opportunities to grow from that. I mean, like we're talking about the podcast, right? As you do more, you get more comfortable, right? You get to know, okay, they're talking about this, so that triggers a question in me to be able to keep going with the conversation, right?
Yeah.
But you can only learn that and develop that as you continue to do more and more and more, right? It's not like you're like, oh, boom. And some people are like that, and some people aren't.
I'm definitely not. So.
And so as you're growing in this and you're doing it more, you're able to start. Okay, this is the question that I want to ask him. This is the next thing. So it keeps the conversation going. You only learn that as you're thrown into the mix, And so yeah, man, I'm a huge advocate for crucial conversations and the things that we need to talk about. But anyways, yeah, going back to the answering your question of how do you prepare. It's just, man, if something means a lot to you, for instance, like parenting, relationships, whatever it is, be intentional with having that planned out beforehand, not waiting till, again, the rubber hits the road, but you're planning already ahead of time before you get to the track, what course I'm going to take,
So, and don't let it build up. Yeah. Don't let frustration and anger build up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's good.
Mm-hmm.
So are you going to stop at 4 kids or are you planning on having more?
Oh, dude, I'm tapped out.
Gotcha.
Literally.
Yeah, I gotcha.
I'm sorry. I'm just kidding. No, I'm sorry. That's a very cut and dry answer. Man, we felt at peace with 4. That was actually that was the desire. And we're like, by any means, I'm not like, all right, Lord, that's it. You don't get to decide. I mean, I kind of made that action step, but the Lord's I've heard stories about dudes getting the snip done and they still managed to have kids. I've heard both sides of the story where one dude did it, his wife did it too. They still had kids, right?
That's crazy.
Dude, when you're supposed to have another kid, you're supposed to have another kid, right? The Lord's going to make a way. But all that to say, man, we had 3 boys and then 1 little girl came. And it's funny. I had my boy and I was praying for a girl all those times. And the Lord really had to deal with me on that second one. He had dude. So I had a boy and I wanted a boy first. I always wanted a girl first. But I don't know, man. It was like a week or 2 before we found out the gender reveal. We did all that. I just felt like the switch flipped, and I wanted a boy first. I wanted a boy. I wanted my boy first, right?
Yeah.
And it happened, and I was geeked. I was thrilled, dude. And then we found out we were having another one. I was like, Lord, let this be a girl. Like, I want a girl.
Mm-hmm.
Let it happen, and prayed, did all that stuff, and had a boy. And I remember sitting in the ultrasound, and before we found out that we were having a boy, I sat there nervous with my wife, but I'm like, man, God grants us the desires of our hearts, right? Right? Nope. I mean, not nope. Sorry, that's wrong. But he does things his way, and quite often we think the God that agrees with us is the God, but quite often it's just our other conscience of fleshly desires. Anyways, I was sitting in the room, and the lady's like, "Are you guys ready to find out?" I'm like, I mean, I already know it's gonna be a girl, but yeah, let's do this. She goes, "You guys are having a boy," and I was just like, "Dude, there's no way you found that out that fast." I was like, "Are you sure we're having another boy?" She's like, "Yeah, you can't miss that." I was like, "Okay," and I just sat there, just frozen. And my wife was like,
"Oh, and you
gosh.
weren't happy,
Dude,
Ricky?"
And I wasn't happy, bro. I was so disappointed. And like, dude, when you realize that like kids just being healthy is one of the most important things, like gender is it's great to want and desire. But when you find out that your kids are healthy and they're doing great, man, that right there is a blessing in itself. But Ricky with one kid and one kid on the way wasn't there, Yep. And me. I was so disappointed. And so the lady left the room. She's like, "I'll give you guys a minute." And I just sat there. And my wife was like, "Babe, are you okay?" She's like, "Babe, are you going to be okay?" And I was just like, so mad, but hurt. And we were driving home, and I had to be at Access that night. That was when I only had my firstborn there, and so I was still going to Access, our college ministry at Res there.
Were you still singing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And we were driving back, and she's like, she just didn't know what to say. And I dropped them off, and I started going to Access, and I literally just started like, I was like, "God, why would you like what?" Like I was just mad, right? Mm-hmm. And I felt this impression of the Lord saying, "Aren't you glad?" I'm like, "All right, say what you're gonna say, dude. Don't play with me." He said, "Aren't you just glad that your son's healthy?" And he brought me to this moment of this story of some family members that I have who had their daughter pass away, literally 10 days before her due date. And dude, God like just humbled me. Mm-hmm. Dude, he was like, "Here you are, your son's healthy, and you're upset because you're having a boy, when there are people out there walking in hurt, wounds, and pains because of like and what like God wasn't like, don't hear me wrong, he wasn't shaming me, right? He wasn't like condemning me. He was like, dude, your son's healthy. Rejoice, be glad in that, right? Yeah. And it just made me feel so bad. Like it made me just it made me feel silly for wasting time being ungrateful.
Yeah.
And I just started weeping, and I said, "Thank you, Jesus. Like, thank you, Lord." And it's not like someone else's like wounds or pains should make me happy. But what made me realize is that, man, so often in life, we take things for granted, right? So often in life, because of these silly things that happen, we go, "Oh no," and we throw everything out, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like, no, man, like that's not the attitude to have. And so it just helped me be grateful and thankful. And so third comes around, and I remember sitting in the hospital room or in the ultrasound there, and the same girl walks in from a year ago. And she looks at me and she goes, "Hey, how are you guys doing?" And I'm like, "Hey, it's good to see you again." She's like, I was like, "Yeah, you guys, you did our last ultrasound." She's like, I don't think I did, but okay, like kind of thing. Yeah. I was like, "No, lady, I'd remember you. Okay, you're part of this testimony, right?" And so she does her thing, and I had like my wife and I going into it, and I kind of told her, I was like, "Babe, no matter what, if the baby's healthy, I'm gonna be happy with that. Praying and believing for a girl still, right?"
Yep.
And she does the same thing she did last time, bro. Like beep beep, you're having another boy. And I was just like, all right, sweet. My wife looked at me. She was kind of like waiting. And I was like, I'm good. Like, this is awesome. But I knew I had made this, like, there was a name that I fell in love with. And I wanted it to be our second born. But my wife wanted to really name him Zane. And she just felt like Zane's the name that we have to, like, that's it. So I had a girl name already planned out. I had a boy name that I think, or that I wanted to. And we found out that we were having another boy, and I knew that it was going to be Reuben. And Reuben, if you don't know what Reuben's name means, it means, behold, I've given you a son, you know? And coming from the testimony of really wanting to grow so bad that it brought me to tears, right? Versus now being content with boy or girl as long as they're healthy. But if it is a son, I want to name him Reuben because God's given me another son, and I'm going to be happy with that.
How did you find that name?
I don't know, dude. It was just on we just had a list of names that we really wanted.
Yeah.
My wife and I, you know, she had a couple of boy names. I had a couple of boy names. She had a couple of girl names. I had a couple of girl names, and just names that we fell in love with. And Reuben was one of them for me. And I looked it up what the name was. And as soon as I found the name, as soon as I found out what the meaning meant, I was just like, this has to be.
It's got to be.
It's got to be one of those. It's got to be it, you know? And so I have like 3 or 4 names on my list. And literally when I knew what that name meant, I was like, right away. I was like, these other names don't even matter. And so the other name that I had for the girl was Anani. Her name would have been Anani May if I would have had a girl. I forgot what Anani May means, but I just love the name Anani, you know? And Anani May goes with, I feel like any last name, not really. Maybe Anani May Parker, right? Like, there you go. Yeah. You know? I was like, wow, that does, right? Or
yeah, it does.
Anani May Skywalker. That sounds pretty cool too.
Yeah,
right?
It does.
So anyways, I'm sorry, I just had to go there, right? But Reuben was the name. And then my daughter came around. And by the time she came around, Anani May just wasn't it anymore. Mm-hmm. Her name would have been Anani May Long. But I just didn't feel like that was it. And then my wife kind of came one day and she said, yeah, babe, what do you think about Scout? And I was like,
it's a cool name.
Scout. And I kept saying it and saying it and saying it. And I was like, I like it. I really like the name, you know? And I'm like, well, what do you have for a middle name? Because Scout Long is great, but she needs she can go by Scout, right? Which it is unique and whatnot. But professionally, I recognize too that Scout doesn't sound as professional. Right? Yeah. Can you imagine being a CEO of a company and, what's the CEO's name? Scout, right? You know? But we wanted to give her a name that made sense, a name that flowed well with her whole name.
Scout Skywalker.
Yeah. Scout Skywalker Long, right? That'd been sick. But I also recognize that it's not just a name that I have to have. It's her name, right? It's her name. So I had to make it make sense. And so we were going through it, and one day I saw Eliana. And Eliana, the name Eliana means the one who was promised, right? Or the one, I think so. No. It's something along with the one that God has promised or the one that God has answered or like something like that. Hopefully by the end of this, I'll let you guys know what it is. But we just felt like it was perfect and it was right. And so we did. So Scout Eliana Long.
Nice.
Yeah, man.
What was the story like when you found out that you were having a daughter after the 3 boys?
Dude.
Was it the same girl too that showed you the...
No, it was a different girl.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a different girl. I should have said it in your face, right? But, man, truthfully, dude, we weren't sure what we wanted to do, if we wanted to wait or if we wanted to know right away. And so we waited as long as we could. And it came to the 20 weeks and we weren't sure yet. And so we waited a little bit, and I remember the letter was before us. You know, we didn't wait until the whole 40 weeks there. We waited long enough, and we opened up the note, and dude, I'm telling you, bro, I actually recorded it. I'm sitting there in the front seat driver there. My wife's sitting in the passenger. She has the phone off to the side there. She's recording us. And I couldn't look, dude. I was like, oops, sorry, my watch. I just sat there and I was just like, I can't. And all of a sudden I just hear her chuckling. And I'm like, oh no. I'm like, what's going on? And I look over and she gives me it. And she's crying at this point. And I see It's like, congratulations, you're having a girl. Because I told her this story about the 2 boys.
Yeah.
And dude, bro, I felt like I won $1 million because we were craving, it's not the right word, but I had such a deep desire to have a little girl. Dude, I had such a deep desire to, bro, all the things that I'll get to do with my daughter, right? To take her on the dates, right? To walk her down the aisle, bro, to do the daddy-daughter dates, man. Dude, I'll even finger paint my nails if I have to, but she's going to be the one to do it. I'm not doing it on my own, right? For fun, right? No, she's going to be the one to do it. Mm-hmm. All that stuff, man. And I knew that was a desire. We were praying for our daughter, and we were praying for her qualities and her characteristics, and we were praying for beautiful eyes, brown hair, all these different things. And here's this little girl coming out, and she is everything we prayed for, you know, and she's a little spoiled.
Obviously. Just she's the youngest and
the girl.
Yeah.
But man, dude, like going back to the 4 kids conversation, right? This is originally what you asked, right?
Yep.
If you were gonna have any more. And the moment we were in the hospital room, it was just me, my wife, and Scout, and she was there, and I just, dude, I can't explain it other than this feeling of like I just felt like my family for the first time was complete. Like I felt like we were like that was it, you know? And, man, I just knew. I felt, again, feeling complete. We were like, I think this is it. So the red light came off of that. I'm not sure if that means anything.
I don't know. It might have. Sometimes it just shuts off.
Okay, cool. Which is no big deal. Okay.
Which is perfect anyway because we're almost at 45 minutes.
That's all. Wow, that went by quick.
It did.
Come on.
That was a beautiful story. And thank you for being so vulnerable. Dude. For all the listeners and in front of me too, because it's good for me too to be around that, to be honest.
This dude's weird. That's what I just didn't know.
That's what I was thinking the whole time. Yeah.
Come on.
But thank you for coming on.
Yeah, dude. Okay, so you're obviously this whole time you're asking questions about me, but for you, man, for all the listeners, I guess, what is your desire for this podcast? Like, where's your desire for this to go? What's that look like?
It's a good question. Right now, I like where it's at, just being able to post whenever. I don't have to be like, I got to come out weekly because I have 2 other jobs right now. So it is kind of hard to get them in.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I would like to see it grow so that I can talk to other Christian podcasters that I listen to on YouTube. I think it'd be really cool to have conversations with them. Yeah. Some of the bigger ones, but I also don't want to get wrapped up in trying to be famous. Yeah. Because I don't think that's what it's all about. Yeah. So I'm a little torn on, yes, I want this to grow, but I want it to be for the right reasons. Yeah. That's where I'm at.
Well, I think the desire, right, is to glorify. Okay. The whole thing about this is that your desire is to glorify God through who you are. Yeah. Right. And having him be a part of this is, I think, your game plan. Right. And so there's no shame in that. Man, I think just what you're doing, allowing people to have conversation to be themselves is huge. And, one of the conversations that I have with Caleb quite frequently is, this is who we are. And that's why we're doing this. Right. Yeah. It's not like the plan is, let's just get like 1 million views and let's get huge. And like, whether it's for 5 or whether it's for 500 or if it's 5,000 or 5 million, right? I'm still going to do it. Yeah. And I think that's your heart, man, is that you're wanting people to know, man, this is out of the overflow of who you are. And it's not work. Yeah, it takes time, but it's not work for you to do this. It's actually something you enjoy doing. Right. And seeing a couple of clips that I've seen before coming from your podcast, talking with people and whatnot. It's just to have open conversation about faith, open conversation about who they are, and usually giving people a platform. And I think there's a lot of people talking, but not a lot of people are listening. And I think it's huge that you're taking the position of, I want to take this place where people can feel like they're being heard, which is huge. So,
well, thank you.
Absolutely, man. Keep tearing it up.
Thank you.
Yeah, dude.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for listening, and have a blessed week.
Come on.